everyone, and welcome to Creative Space, a podcast where we explore, learn, and grow in creativity together. On today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Jezabel Careaga. She's an entrepreneur, designer, chef, and maker from Jujuy, Argentina, who moved to Philadelphia in 2010 to open her cafe, Jezabel's, in Fitler Square. Over the last 12 years, her empanadas, alfajores, and other Argentine delicacies have become a staple in Philly. In 2019, she relocated to a larger space in Spruce Hill, where she expanded her offerings to include cooking classes and special events. Her latest venture, which we're going to talk about today, is l'atelier, her collection of custom furniture and artisan home goods. She's a woman of many talents. Welcome to Creative Space, Jezabel.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I have to start this off by, do you remember how we met originally? I think
you came over to 26 and Pine.
Yeah.
I think it was even like a rainy morning or something like that. I want to say, I remember being grayish, which is, yeah.
I remember it vividly. I think it was for a Metro story.
Yes, that's correct. That's right. Yes.
And I think you sent me home with the most amazing alfajores I've ever had in my life. And I remember them in a little bag. They're just so beautiful, so delicious. And you put so much love into everything you create. So I'm so excited to have you on Creative Space.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. I love to talk about creativity and what drives the human being to, the pursuit is always putting something together. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes. And on your website, I think I saw you have these lines: human being, human doing, human loving, human dreaming. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh my God, it's funny. Yes, I would love to talk about it. I just had that conversation also with some friends over here at the atelier last Friday because, we were talking about, I think we live in a society that likes to put you in boxes. And I'm all about what are we, right? Usually you meet someone and you're like, what do you do? What are you? Who are you? And then it's like, I'm a human being, doing, loving, dreaming. And I think those are the verbs or the actions that I associate the most. I'm also cooking, but it's kind of like dreaming. That's kind of like loving someone. That's why you cook for them, right? I don't know. That means also doing. And I just want to be human. I want to do things as a human. And I think it just breaks the boxes of who are you, what do you do? We're all humans, right? I think if there is no bigger equalizer to say whether you are you become a physician or you treat patients or you are a lawyer or you are an architect or you are a cook. I mean, we're all just humans. So I decided to kind of push a little bit the envelope and say when people ask me, what are you? I'm a human being, doing, loving, dreaming. Then any other title that, we decide to have, there are other titles that kind of define who you are, being an entrepreneur, a maker, a cook, a chef, founder, all of those things. I think they come second. But the main core is being that human who's dreaming, being, doing, and loving every day.
I know I struggle as a creative sometimes when I have all these different outlets. And some people don't have many outlets. They focus on one thing. And I love this philosophy you have just about being a human in general, because it opens everything up and gets us out of those boxes so we can create and be and do and love. And it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. I don't know. I think I'm very much I have this constant reminder that time is so finite, right? And I'm constantly deciding how many words I want to use. I don't want to use an extra word that I have to. I don't want to make an extra step that I don't have to. I'm consider myself extremely economical in the sense of that I take the steps that I need to take, but I don't spend extra energy on projects, on things that I don't want to do, things that they don't feel right, on people that I don't want to be with. And I think being human, it kind of like also opens the door to whatever you're going through, because we're all going through something,
Yes.
through some
Learning.
insecurity,
Mm-hmm.
scars, sickness, whatever. Like everybody's going through some kind of something. And I think it just it lowers the shield to kind of be human.
Yes. We're all on a journey to grow and to become who we're meant to become on this planet. So let's start at the very beginning of your journey. What was it like growing up in Jujuy, Argentina?
Oh my goodness. I haven't had that question in a long time.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad I asked it.
Yeah. I think there were many things they're very idyllic in a way. You know, I grew up on a smaller town feeling, even though there are 50,000 people in that town. But more of like in a small town feeling, surrounded by close-knit relatives, family, grandmas around. Life revolved pretty much around family. You know, I'm the oldest of four, and I think that's a title that I was born into, right? And I think part of that, I always had like drive on my own. Like, you know, I'm a self-starter. I think a lot of things in my personality, they come from that corner. You know, for one side, then the other one, like being a leader. You know, my siblings are like 6, 8, 13 years younger than me. So, you know, I was always the older, the one that is like kind of seeing how things go forward and things like that. So it's a mix of things. And I think just having that role in my life at 6, because that's when my sister is born, definitely has influenced who I am and the way that I relate, you know. And someone asked me not that long ago on an interview, if you were to be an animal or a plant, what would you be? And then I said, a lioness, you know. And what the lioness does is just protects her cubs and her partner, like nothing can happen to them, right? Like, and if you are in my corner, that's who I am. And I am that person with my team. I am that person with my friends. I am that person with my family. So I don't know, it's getting mixed up here, but I think part of like a lot of those things got instilled as a child, like being a self-starter, being the leader of the pack, very loving, very open, really good progressive education. I mean, this is one thing that I always remember. I was in 6th grade when I learned about climate change.
Oh, wow.
And this is 1993. So when sometimes I have questions I start talking about climate change and, you know, like wind energy and all of these things, to me, it seems weird that we're still trying to think about like, oh, we're going through climate change. No, we're going through climate collapse. We have known this since the 70s. Why are we trying to take action on these 50 years later? So I had like really good progressive education, very open-minded. I love to work with my hands. I like to cook. I like to work with wood. I was always kind of moving my hands around the house. So I guess that relates also fast forward to making food, making furniture today.
Right. So were your parents creative? Were they entrepreneurs?
Yes and no. My mom dipped her toes in for a little bit, but it wasn't her thing. And then my dad held a position at a company that he had a fair amount of freedom. So, you know, he always was able to have his job, but also like grab cool projects in between. So I always learned that from him. And he was very well respected among his colleagues and the people that was working for him. So I try to emulate that kind of way of being a firm leader, but also flexible on some angles, right? Like I do believe in being professional, on showing up to work presentable and ready to go, and having a little makeup and always looking your best. But not everything has to be so structured. So it's like somewhere in between. And my dad was extremely professional. You will never see him go to work with the uniform from the day before, right? Like always iron and presentable and just ready to go, and hair properly combed and things like that. So those are, I think, like little things and little details that for me, they are important. And I think as everything got so relaxed with COVID, it's kind of like hard getting back to it.
It very much is. I agree. Yeah, me just learning how to put makeup on again. I was like, wait, how do I do this? But here we are.
Yes, exactly.
What was your first creative outlet growing up?
We had a class at a school that it was kind of called like crafts or something like that.
Okay.
So I was always like overdoing myself. And then I just love cooking. So whenever I had the chance to cook with my mom or my grandmother, we did that as well. So, I will say like cooking and just doing crafts. At some point, I assembled like a little coffee table. By the time I may have been like 15. I just remember my dad like, can we please make this table? Can we please make this table? So we ended up doing it.
Oh, you worked on it together,
yes.
you and your dad?
Yes. But yeah, I love just working with my hands.
So your dad's a woodworker too?
My dad is very handy. He will like fix an outlet. He will fix a faucet. He will fix very, very, very handy. My grandfather made furniture on my dad's side. He made furniture for the house. So the house that I grew up sleeping, the bed that I ended up sleeping in as a kid, my grandfather had made it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So all these inspirations, it's so interesting and so cool to see where it's led you today. But what drove your creativity back then as a kid? You remember?
I don't know if this is the best answer, but I think lately I've been trying to do, I think a lot of my creativity is driven by or inspired by my grandmother, Julia. She took care of me since I was 6 months old when my mom went back to work until I was 5 and I started kindergarten. And I just play in her backyard, help her make pasta, peel potatoes. And it was like I live in La La Land at all of those years, right? Like the most formative years of a child from 6 months to 5 years.
Yes.
I had this like life of like wonder, and like she will take me to the grocery shop and the baker. We will go to the bakery and we will go to pick up meat and the butcher and all of those things. And my grandmother come from very humble beginnings. But if she wanted the house painted, she will just go find the paint and she will paint the whole house white. And I wonder why today my house and my business are all painted white, right? So I think it's that connection to, if you just want to do it, you just get it done. She lost my grandfather in her early 60s, I believe. So, most of her life, I'm going to say 30 years or so. The last 30 years of her life, she spent it, like just being the person that carries it home. And she was always that person. So I think a lot comes from her, she was very simple and humble, but every morning she got up, she washed her face, she put a little moisturizer, she put the bobby pins, the hair was always up and tight. and she put a little lipstick, and that was it. And it's so basic
She's
and
ready to
simple,
go.
but she did it every single day.
Beautiful.
Right. And it just showed that she was ready for the day. I don't remember not seeing her that way. So I don't know. I think a lot of my inspirations come from her, from just going around and see what's up. She was very loving and very caring, and she was always able to express what she wanted, how she wanted, put the boundaries, and like be nice. And when we would walk around town, everybody loved her. Like everybody was like, hey, they will call her Doña Julita.
Julita.
Which is, yeah, like it's like a little Julia, but Doña is, the term of endearment for someone who's older, but they always like treat her with so much kindness, but she was also the person who was extremely kind too.
It came right back to her.
And, that's who she was. And she was simple and easy and loving and caring. And I think somewhere between her and who I saw my dad become a leader and be a person who ended up running the company that he worked for so many years is kind of where I want to end up, and kind of like who I try to emulate and use them as role models for my life.
Oh, wow. Wonderful role models covering the whole gamut. So beautiful. So on the subject of creativity, how would you define it? Where do you think it comes from?
How do I define creativity today? I think it's like your heart's expression. That's what I call creativity. At the end of the day, you can be creative in so many ways. You can be creative making food. You can be creative working with wood. You can be creative designing a space, designing experience, designing your company. I think creativity is really tied with intention, right? Of just being intentional. Where design comes from is like the moment that you decide to make something prettier. So it doesn't only touch your life, but also touch the lives of those around you. And I read this recently at a book that I just finished. That's what is considered design to be, right? Like the moment you decide to make something prettier for yourself or for others. So
that's beautiful. That can definitely be a
creativity.
Yeah.
And then being creative, I think is just part of that design component to say like, I'm going to make this better for myself. And most likely, I'm hoping this will touch others too. It's that idea of making things better, I don't know if the word is better, but adding beauty to it.
Adding beauty to the world.
Whatever that is. Whether it's through a planter, a plate of food, a building, the experience that you have when you go into a building, the way that you write a paper. There are so many ways to add beauty every day. So I think that's what I'll define creativity somewhere along those lines, the intention.
So when did you know you wanted to start your own business?
I knew that I guess I knew it at different points, but I remember playing around 5 or 6, saying like grabbing like little leaves and stones, and I will set it up on my parents' garage, and I will play that I had a grocery store. So it could come from there. And I remember having my little like bag crossing my body, and I will like make like kind of like little papers, and that was the money, and that will be like my play time with my neighbors. That was one. The other one, it was when I went to business school while I'm working at the tour operator office with Sergio. I did a business program, and I developed the business programs for that company. But then I also told myself, like, by the time I'm like 38, 40, and after I had a career, I would like to open this restaurant slash bakery catering kind of a thing, with a lot of window, a lot of light, open kitchen. And that opportunity came along after being 2 years in Miami when I was 26, 27.
So it came a lot earlier for you, which is wonderful.
I know. So now that I just turned 40, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life.
We'll get to that part. But why did you choose Philly from Miami for Jezabel's?
I'm an artist. I follow my heart. And I have met someone in Miami that was from Philadelphia. And he owned the property where I originally opened my cafe, 26 and Pine. So it's like, let's move to Philly. I was like, sure, that sounds like a great idea.
Wonderful.
The beauty of being 20 something when you're like, oh, I'm just going to open a business.
Yes. And then you have multiple creative pursuits. So how do you know when to actually make an idea? You must have a million ideas all the time. Like, how do you know, okay, this is something I'm going to do. I'm opening this cafe. I'm moving to Spruce Hill and expanding to offer cooking classes.
I would say that I think, and this is the more reflective I have gotten through over the last few years, that it comes to the connection that you have to yourself. Since I was 5 and I was playing that I own a grocery store to 20 years later when I opened Jezabel's, and to today, 15 years later when I had a business for so long. I think one of the conversations that I have with one of my closest friends often is like, you're just following your intuition. So now, do I need to follow my intuition on every single thing that it leads me? No. I think I'm very fortunate that if I have an idea, because I already have a business and a platform, I can test it for a little time. And then I can say like, well, maybe this is a great idea, but not for now. Maybe this is a great idea for later. Maybe this is a great idea to become its own business down the line. And I have tried things that they have not worked and then just put them back to sleep, and you never know. To be honest, you never know. But I think I follow my intuition and I follow my heart to say like, oh, this feels fun. This makes me feel good. Let's explore that area. And the fact that I can explore and see what happens, that's a very fortunate position to be in.
What's the greatest challenge you've experienced as an entrepreneur so far?
Greatest challenge. A challenging time, I'm going to say maybe it was when I had to move the business from 26 and Pine to 45th Street. I think a lot of which is the place where you met me, right?
Yes.
And then you also had been to the new space as well.
Love the new space. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I can wait for you to come and see the whole new expansion. But I count that as a very challenging time because I think for a long time, 26 and Pine was my identity, right? That's what people knew me for. And when I had to execute the move very quickly and in order for the business not to go under or things like that, it was just physically and emotionally taxing on my body. And it took me a long time to recover.
Wow.
I made the moves. I set the business to be okay for 6 months, but then 2019, I ran out of money day after day after day after day. And then 2020 came around.
Oh my gosh.
So, I think 29, that moment that I had to move the business, I just couldn't sleep. I was with acid reflux all day long, even though if I wasn't eating much. It was an emotional shock to my system. I'm very happy that I went through it. I'm so happy that things happen the way that they happen. And And I remember telling myself that in that moment that I was going through the move, to say like, you don't know yet, but this is the best. Like, you need to do this change. I know it sucks, but just, it's okay. Get through the pain, get through the non-sleep, get through all of this. Like, it's going to be okay. And I just believe either myself or I trust the universe that everything was going to be okay. And yeah, it was just getting to the other side. And now I couldn't be happier that things happened the way that they happened. So instead of like fighting and getting upset and angry at challenging times, I just decided to say like, okay, that's happening. What can you do to keep moving forward, keep putting one feet in front of the other one, and then just let what is painful be painful. Let what is being challenging be challenging. Just kind of like this very like tunnel vision of like one feet in front of the other one feet in front of the other one, you know, and you don't know what's going to happen, but I believe that I was going to be able to figure it out.
You are so inspiring. That is amazing advice that I'm taking for myself, because you do come out the other side stronger and you're more ready for new challenges, new opportunities. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about L'Atelier. We know you always designed furniture, it sounds like, from what was the inspiration behind L'Atelier?
I think like everything else in my life, very organic, right? I started making furniture in 2015, like more formally trained here in the US. And then I just like testing things out, and then I furnished my house.
Beautiful.
I always focus on the gaps that you find along the way. So I think one of the things that I learned at 26 and Fine, it was like a small, and then you have the health code regulation, and then you have other regulations, and then you have regulations for commercial businesses. So if at any point you're like considering all of these things while running a business, and you have to get custom made pieces, all of these things, I mean, it's extremely expensive. So I was like, maybe I can start fabricating this and that and this and that. And that's what I did. So I did a few pieces and things for 26 and Fine. And then I was like, now that I know the health code regulation, I want to make the space pretty for every guest that walks in here, but I also want to make the space pretty for everybody who works here. Because the employees are the ones that spend the most time in the space.
Yes, that's a wonderful
And so
perspective.
When I started expanding on 20th and 45th Street, I was like, let's make it pretty from beginning to end for everybody. So I think that was a lot of the driver behind it. And then, I furnished one space, I furnished a space two. And then at that point, I'm like, well, I think I need to just have a business that is for design and furniture, because it's something that's my next career, I think. I do a lot of reading. I expose myself to a fair amount of art and architecture and sculpture. And I have many friends that are architects and in the design world. So these are conversations that I have on a regular basis. So, okay, it's again, just following my intuition little by little. And then it takes you somewhere, and then it's taking you and me now today to the space where I'm sitting, which is L'Atelier.
I can't wait to see it. Do you have a particular piece that you've worked on that you'd like to share a story about that maybe means something to you?
Oh my God. I think my desk is the one that definitely holds a little bit of a special place, because I get to send emails, pay invoices, but also I get to draw and write, and it's a space that I get to have conversations on. So I feel like that's a special place. The other special place is the sofa where I'm sitting on right now.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Because yesterday I had a friend that came over, and then I was like, let's just go to the sofa. So we cozy up here, and we had our coffee and our tea, and just like, and then it was like, that's such a it's awesome place to have to get it for to just relax without the like you're sitting on a chair. Is a lot more formal. So I do love this piece. So yeah, I would say like somewhere along my desk and this sofa.
Are there particular designers who inspire you in your furniture design work?
I cannot name a designer, to be honest. I don't think I follow a designer. I think I follow more architects.
Okay.
Zaha Hadid, who's no longer with us, and then Frank Gehry. Yes, you know, the clean lines. Yeah, I would say somewhere along those lines, but that's more like grandiose, big architecture. But I look at those things and then it's like how kind of like little pieces of that will come together on a smaller space. Yeah, so yeah, I think somewhere along those lines. Yeah.
Cool. And how can we see your work and purchase your designs, your furniture?
So we're developing a website right now. So stay tuned. I think the best thing to do is follow me on Instagram. Because you have a link to everything I do, right? So we have the Jezabels in there, you have L'Atelier in there. So there are a few things happening there. Yeah, but we're working on the website right now. We're finishing a few pieces. So yeah, this is gonna be ready to go. And in the meantime, I am making furniture and a few other pieces for other people too.
Jezabel, where do you find the time? Like, oh my goodness, you do everything. You're Superwoman.
I have a great team. So, you know, and it's like, I was telling a friend not that long ago, I was like, I think I'm putting myself out of my kitchen job. You know, like awesome. It's like training people, doing this, doing that. Okay, step back. So, you know, it's just like, okay, this is out of my hands. Just make sure it happens. Try the food here and there. It's all good to go. So yeah, I think it's just really like it's stepping back where I have to, you know, I don't have to do everything. And I just need to learn to trust people to do the best they can do. And that's it. So
truly the mark of a great leader when you can step away and the ship sails smoothly.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Jezabel, thank you so much for taking the time to interview for Creative Space. I didn't know there's so much about your story that I didn't know about. So I'm so glad we did this.
We can do a second part whenever.
Awesome. I'm going to hold you to that. And in the meantime, I'll have to go and check out your new space and get myself some alfajores.
I know.
For more on Jezabel and all of her current projects, visit her website at jezabelcareaga.com. And thank you so much for tuning in and growing in creativity with us. I'd love to know what you thought of today's episode, what you found most interesting, what you found most helpful. You can reach out to me on social media at Jennifer Logue, or leave a review for Creative Space on Apple Podcasts so more people can discover it. I appreciate you all so much for being here in the beginning stages of Creative Space. My name is Jennifer Logue, and thanks for listening to this episode. Until next time.